Welcome back to another episode of So You're Ready to Date, the podcast. And today we have a fun dating topic. We haven't really talked much about those first few dates. We believe it was season one, I know for sure, and maybe a little bit in season two. We talked about first dates and what to do on them and how to prepare. But now we want to come to this idea about second dates, which obviously requires a first date. So we're going to talk a little bit about first dates, getting yourself ready, getting yourself prepared so that hopefully you can seamlessly transition a wonderful happening first date into an equally wonderful second date and hopefully third and fourth, and just kind of explodes this little dating thing that you're going on. So we want to talk about how can we set ourselves up for success so that at the end of this first date, we're so excited to have a second date with this person because things went so spectacularly well.
I love this topic. It'll be so much fun to talk about. And I think the key to snagging a second date starts even before your first date does. And that is thinking about your mindset and putting yourself in the right state of mind before you even start your first date. Really thinking positively, thinking about where you want that to go, and thinking about what your intention is when you go on this date. Like maybe all you want is this first date because you're just diving out there to see how things are going. Or maybe you have an intention on going on a first date 365 times in a year and writing about it and not really getting to the second date. Or maybe you actually are looking for something a little bit more long-term, something more permanent. You're looking for that right someone. And so understanding and knowing and thinking about what your intention is when you go into that, I think is really important.
Yes. I think that, like you said, that starting point of, okay, what am I hoping at the end of this date? Is it going to be a second date, or is it just going to be, yes, I had a great experience. It got me out there. It got me trying. I think this is the perfect opportunity as you're getting ready for the date to practice hyping yourself up, to find some affirmations that maybe encourage you and uplift you, because to coming into this date with a mindset of course they're going to want a second date with me, of course I'm going to want a second date with them because we're going to hit it off, it's going to be fabulous. It's kind of manifesting it if you want to, but setting yourself up for coming into this space into this date from a space of confidence, of walking into it being like, I know what I want, I know what I'm worth, and I know what I deserve. And having this aura of just, I'm a good, nice, fun person. Of course, they're going to want to spend more time with me because who wouldn't, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And thinking about going through all of that, when you're thinking about that, I'm this nice, fun person that, of course, they would want to spend more time with me. That's something as you're thinking about it and as you're coming up with that, really, you delete that out. Okay. Really thinking about where you want to go with this and what you want, and bringing that energy into the interaction is is awesome. And the goal is to have a good time, and the goal is to have fun. And while your intention might be to get a second date, the goal is also to have fun. So make sure you're smiling and you're bringing that fun and flirty energy to your date.
What I did when I was deep in the like throes of a whole bunch of first dates was I created a Spotify playlist of songs that felt encouraging to me, of songs that felt empowering to me. And so I would listen to it as I got ready. I would listen to it in the car as I drove to the date because I was always so incredibly nervous because, yeah, you're putting yourself out there. You're putting yourself in front of this very new person and kind of being like, please like me. We all do that to some extent. So finding those ways of, for me, it was a playlist. Maybe for you, it's being on FaceTime right before you walk in the door with your best friend who always knows how to encourage you in a very specific way. But it's finding those ways where you can come into your own confidence and your own power and walk into that date feeling like, whether this goes right, wrong, anywhere in between, at least I'm going to have a fun experience, or as fun as I can, and come out of this you'll still be fine. You'll survive. But again, that intentionality, I think, is something that we miss. We're thinking, oh, I'm just going on this date. I'm just going out to have drinks. No, be intentional. You don't have to be like, oh, I'm going to meet the man I'm going to marry or the woman I'm going to marry. No, but I'm going to go in there and try my best to get to know this new person and to show up as my true authentic self, because that's the person they're going to want to have a second date with.
Yes. Be your authentic self, be genuine, show up as yourself, and give the date your attention. Be focused on what you're doing and be in the moment, not sidetracked on social media, right? Nobody wants to feel like they're taking second string to social media into an inanimate object. So when you go on that first date, really be present in the moment. And that is a great way to set yourself up for a second date.
Well, and I think if you're one of those people who finds it difficult to focus on that other person because you get easily distracted, it's maybe finding a restaurant or a bar that's a little bit quieter. It's maybe setting up your phone to be on do not disturb so that you're not always worrying about if is it pinging, is it buzzing, do I need to be checking is their messages. It's setting yourself up to succeed, to focus on this other person so that they feel like, so neither of you feel like it was a waste of your time, right? You want to go on this date to potentially meet somebody new that it might turn into something, but you won't ever find that out if both of you are too busy checking messages or being on TikTok or searching whatever it is you're searching, instead of asking those questions and really giving each other that legitimate, real chance to get to know you and you to get to know them.
As you're getting to know them and as you are answering the questions that they have, make sure to keep your answers positive. You want to show the positive side. You want to showcase your fun side to be around. Somebody, we want to be around partners that are enjoyable to be around. We want our dates to be enjoyable to be around, which also means that you want to be enjoyable to be around. So when you're first getting to know somebody, think about the type of person that you like to talk to and that you like to get to know and that you like to be friends with. Typically, they're the people that are going to encourage you. They're the people who are going to surround you with positive energy. So you want to make sure that although you're being genuine and maybe you did have a crappy day, let's not talk about our crappy day. Let's talk about the things that we love. Let's talk about the things that bring joy to our life and keep our first dates positive.
There will be a time and a place, if this goes beyond dates 3 and 4, to talk about that toxic ex, to talk about those toxic family members, the bad job, whatever it is. There will be time to really dig deep and talk about some of those other experiences. Typically, that's not going to be your first few days. So, whether somebody may bring up past relationships, and it can be as simple as, we just stopped seeing eye to eye, or we just wanted different things. There are ways to answer the question but not answer the question, and maybe move it on from there if you're trying to really work on creating this sense of, I want this to stay positive. I want this to be, let's talk about our favorite movie lines. Let's bring it back to something more fun instead of it being about, let's just drag our exes for the next 45 minutes. And that never really feels like it leaves a good flavor to the date if we just kind of dived into that negativity hole.
Right. I totally agree with that. So my advice is definitely to keep it on the positive side, probably on the lighter side for that first date. But I also think that it's important if you're looking to snag a second date, humans are not mind readers typically. And so the person that you're on a date with may not be getting the right signals. You may think that you're sending all the right signals and they may not be getting all of those right signals. So make sure that you express an interest in a second date. Just like if you're going on a job interview, one of the key things that you want to do as you're leaving that interview is to tell them that you want the job. If you are out on a date and you want a second date, it's important to express that interest that you want that second date.
The amount of probably heartache I could have saved myself by, or just frustration, maybe that's a better word, by just asking for what I wanted. I think it has this air of being like needy or clingy, or almost has this negative connotation. But like you said, they may not read that gentle brush of his arm or her arm, or that, tapping the hand or hand on the shoulder, or any of those subtle gestures that most of us do to indicate that, hey, we kind of like you. This might be something to move forward. So I think not only does it kind of show some self awareness, but it is a really empowering move. And I think a way to cut through the do they or don't they, saying like, hey, you mentioned that restaurant. I think that sounds really awesome. What are your plans next week? You want to go? And they may say yes, they may say no, they may say, hey, let's wait and see. But I sometimes they just need to know, oh, I guess they are interested. And I think sometimes it takes that guesswork out of, well, do they or don't they? No, just ask. If they don't, maybe they'll say no. If they're like, well, let's see how the rest of this date goes, you still have a bit of an answer. But I think to me, there was something always very endearing and charming and attractive about somebody who's like, I like you enough that I want to do this again before we even finish this first one. So let's take a look at our calendars and start seeing if we can get something on the books.
Right. And I think back and it's like, how many love matches have been missed because of miscommunication? Now, when one door closes, another one opens. You can't mess up if it's the right person, if it's the right thing. And there's always another person out there. So it's not thinking back in regret and going back and going, oh, this is so terrible that I missed out on this. But again, how much frustration would you have saved? How many love matches have been missed out on? How much exploration has been missed out on just because neither party stated their intentions because they were too shy? And like you said, planning your second date while you're on your first date is a great way that is non-threatening to show interest in having a second date. But the worst that can happen is that they say no.
Right. And I think sometimes the not knowing, at least for me, has always been worse than somebody just being like, no, I don't think I'm really interested. Perfect. Awesome. That means I can go on another first date. I can go try this again. I don't have to worry if, you know, there are always going to be those people who are going to be like, oh, well, let me check my calendar when I get home. And then you never hear from again. Yes, 100% that'll probably happen at some point. But that way of hopefully circumventing that by saying, you know what, I just don't feel, the connection here. I've had a really great time. I wish you all the best. Boom, perfect. Now you both can move on.
Yeah, yeah. And it's that simple. And it can be fun. Maybe you're planning a second date and that plan isn't going according to the way that you thought it would, and it starts to feel awkward. Turn it into a fantasy, turn it into a story that you're telling each other, and play this game of pretend to give you both an out. So there is ways to back out of it, but it's also a way to lay it on the table in a way that's really non-threatening, where you don't really have to be afraid that you're being too over the top with it. So I love the way that you phrase that is, hey, there's this restaurant I really wanted to try. That's a great conversation to have. You can talk about different restaurants to bring that up. And so I love that idea, and it really takes the guesswork out of it for the other person and for yourself, because you're just laying it out there and you're able to have that conversation, which I think is great.
I was always typically like a 2-date person with everyone I went out with, because I fully understand. And I'm pretty sure I've talked about this before, that first date, it always took me at least a good half hour to get the vast majority of the nerves gone. They never completely left. So I understand that our first date impression may not be 100% awesome. Hopefully it's not a complete train wreck, because you're talking about things that you're passionate about, you're getting to know this other person, you're hopefully having a little bit of fun. But even if I was kind of on the fence about somebody, I'm like, we'll do a second date unless there are like major red flags or something really in your gut is telling you, nope, this is not good. I always did a second date because I felt like by that second date, we were a little bit more relaxed. You kind of got a deeper glimpse of who they were. And, then maybe you can decide, yeah, this is not really for me. But 2-date rules were really what worked for me. Again, work finding what works for you, but it felt like I got a better sense of people by that second date. And it was usually that second date where I'm like, yeah, there's not going to be a third, or it's like, can I see you again tomorrow? So it felt like there was no in between. There's like either nope, no way, or like, when are we doing this again? Because this was too much fun.
Right. And okay, so let's talk for a second, because when you're talking about something like that, you want to avoid red flag behaviors. And I know sometimes that can you really look at yourself and say those are red flag behaviors? But I will say I have a tendency, in the past, I've had a tendency to really let somebody else be in the driver's seat and not set boundaries. And I went on a date with the guy, and we met for coffee, and it was going good. We were having great conversation. He didn't want it to end. So we ended up going out and doing some other stuff. And that was fine. We both had the time to do it. And then he wanted to have a second date. And the second date, the red flag behaviors really came out. And he never would have got that second date if I had seen those red flag behaviors. And one of the things we talked about is the fact that I'll tell you the story. My love language is not receiving gifts. That's not where my love language is. That's not what I'm expecting from somebody that I first met. I tell him this. I tell him that I don't want to collect stuff, that I like to have a very simplistic household. And we go to the grocery store to go buy something to have for dinner. We're going to go make dinner together. We're going to do this. And he proceeds to buy me a blanket, a pillow, and a stuffed animal at the grocery store. And I'm, no, I don't need it. But I touched it. I was like, oh, that's soft, as I was walking by. I just happened to say it. And he would not take no for an answer and insisted on buying me these items. And then we got home and we're making dinner, and he's telling me that he is ready to have somebody move in with him by 6 months of dating. And we're on a second date, and you've already done something I told you I very specifically didn't want. That would be red flag behavior to the nth degree. And so, can you sit back and say, I'm really listening to what my partner is saying? Are you talking about a future before you've discussed being a couple? That's another red flag topic. Talking about conspiracy theories, that might be a red flag topic. Talking about politics on your second date might be a red flag topic. So there's just some things to watch and avoid, and you can sit back and do a self-reflection and just avoid those behaviors at the first couple of dates.
Does it feel like the conversation is somewhat balanced? Because I've had a lot of those dates where certain people did a lot more talking than they did listening. So I'm like, I know basically your life story, and I think you maybe know my first name. So I think there's this idea, again, it's not going to be 100%. We're not looking for every question he asks, did you ask and answer one? No, it's, are they showing equal and genuine interest? Because that's a huge red flag to me. I'm like, then it feels like you don't even care to know who you're on the date with. You just needed a warm body to talk to while you were on this date. And some of that comes with, building that confidence of knowing what your boundaries are, of knowing what you want and what you will and will not settle for, or will or will not put up with. And that comes back to creating that list of what works for you, of working on whatever you need to work on to make sure you've got the confidence to say, no, this is a boundary for me. I'm not going to cross that, whether that's with physical touch, whether that's kissing, whether that's love languages, all of that stuff. It's just being so secure and knowing what works for you, that hopefully you feel those red flags before they pop up. But like you said, are there things that I do that might be a red flag? Is it that I look at my phone too much? Is it that I kind of am always scanning the room, not really looking at them, not making eye contact? So being aware of what your own red flag behavior might be, because maybe you're noticing this pattern of not getting second dates. You're the common denominator in not getting second dates. So taking that maybe hard look back and being like, am I doing something that's turning these people off? Maybe you are, maybe you've just had a string of bad picks. It could be a million different reasons, but being aware of your own limitations and your own red flags. And it's not necessarily about hiding them, but it's about hopefully you're trying to do something to not have them. That's the way to put it, to be aware of them and to address the issues before it becomes, well, this is just my personality. And if you can't deal with it, then you're not the right person. All right. That's one way to do it, I suppose.
That is one way to do it. And we're not telling you that anything is wrong, but if you are looking for ways to improve your stats and you are looking for ways to snag that second date and go beyond that superficial conversation to really dive in and get to know somebody, taking a step back and looking at some of that stuff can be helpful and can be useful in your dating life. And really, it comes down to make it fun, be a fun person to be around, and not saying that you are not. I'm sure that you are a great person to be around, but really making sure that you have that side of you showing on the first date in a genuine and positive way.
Because we've said it before and we'll say this till the end of the podcast, be interested and interesting. So it's about having a life that you have fun in and that you enjoy. So that gives you stuff to talk about. And then on that reverse, practicing questions that you can ask other people to show that you are interested in them, because people want to talk about themselves. They just do. We all do. We all want to be able to gush and talk about the stuff that we love and that we're passionate about. So asking those leading questions, letting people really gush about what excites them. And I feel like that's going to increase your probability of getting that second date by 100-fold, if not more.
So put these tips to work. Let us know how it worked for you. Drop us a line at soyou'readytodate@gmail.com. Let us know if you were able to snag that second date. If you weren't, tell us what the outcome was and how we can come back and help you with some more tips and some more tricks in order to help you progress your dating journey to where you want it to be.